What? Yes. The monopod. Oh, John Henry, is it on? look at this because I can't do it.
So say it again.
Look at the front of this because I can't.
321 123 321 123.
Are they both on?
They're all three are on.
Okay, scoot over. Scoot over, scoot over, scoot over. When you talk, you're going to have to be close to you.
Okay, guys. Here's what's
You at the front row?
Step around here, please. I need to be able to find you. 321-123, 321-123. Mr. Congress. Yeah.
So I can't get to it. I need them modified.
From this village.
Yards away in Lafayette Park as he needs Trump in the Rose Garden, saying he is the law and order president, saying he is moving the National Guard troops to Washington, D.C., saying he's asking governors, as he did today, to deploy those additional resources. The president making those statements in the Rose Garden with the sound of tear gas being deployed just a few hundred yards away in Lafayette Park as police in riot gear and on horseback move the crowds back from that saying he needs to establish the rule of law in the country, and that's most important. Again, Brit Hume with us, senior political analyst. Brit, your thoughts on this moment, this speech?
I never thought I'd see this moment with the president speaking in the Rose Garden and the sights and sounds that you just described happening just across the street, really. Just when we thought this year, this amazing year, could not become more tumultuous, it now has. The president has clearly decided to...
321-123, 321-123. Yes, I can hear you. Just tell me when we're live and we're going to be talking.
Shut your bitch ass up, nigga. Shut your bitch ass up. Shut your bitch ass up. I bet you gonna take that bad bitch shot though, bitch. Push it. What back? What back? What back? Away from this stuff. What part of DC you from? What back? You can't even answer that bitch ass boy. What back? Where you at my name? What part you at my name? Where you from? Stupid ass.
John Henry, can you hear me? John Henry.
Yes, I can hear you, Larry.
You can hear me?
I can hear you, Larry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, John Henry.
Okay. We're right now at 15th and Swan, just north of 15th and S, right off the 14th and U corridor. You can see we've got a pretty tense situation here. We were at 15th and S earlier, where a crowd was coming from 14th. We got blocked off by police at S. After that, police directed them back north towards Swan, and then...
Are we live? All right, we want to welcome all of our friends on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram right now. As we have been doing for the past few hours now, we have been closely monitoring the demonstrations in the district, again, in response to the death of George Floyd, who passed away just a week ago. Let's check in now with our very own correspondent out there. John Henry, who is joining us right now to give us an update on what is going on. John, where you are at this point looks tense. And what is the scene there? And give us an update.
It's incredibly tense, Larry. Right now we're at the intersection of 15th and Swan. This has been going on for 10 minutes. And it really started originally at 15th and S. There was a crowd that was coming from 14th Street, actually coming from U Street, down 15th, and they were confronted by police at S. The police then pushed them back to Swan, and now will not let them leave Swan. The police are in the middle of the intersection, but now they're surrounded on both sides in Swan by people, obviously the protesters. Police have been in the middle, protesters on all the sides, and basically what we have is a pretty tense situation here. We're blocked in right now in this intersection on all sides by police. There are multiple layers of things that are going on. You can see right now, this gentleman.
Fuck these niggas, man. Y'all know what pain feel like.
He's just showing you how heated things are around here.
All right, so it looks like we're having some technical difficulties there. Kind of hard to hear,
John.
John.
Here, Larry. I'm just.
I got your heart, bitch. My mother.
Okay, John, you can continue.
Yep, can you hear me now, Larry?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Larry, we're right now on 15th and Swan. We're right now on 15th and Swan, surrounded by police in each side of this intersection. And on top of us is one of their helicopters. What was originally happening was a crowd of protesters, probably about 100 people, were coming down from U Street and were stopped for some reason by cops on S. They were then pushed back to Swan, where police would not let them move. Police have taken up a central position right now on Swan and 15th, where they're surrounded by protesters, but all of us are surrounded by police on every side of this intersection. Things are pretty tense. There are people in their windows and the rooftops trying to get an idea as to what's going on. But it's right now just a stalemate and a stare-off.
So, John, let me ask this question. In terms of the scene there now, does it appear that police are preparing themselves to make arrests?
You know, it's hard to say, because where the police are, where we are, they're surrounded. I doubt that they're going to take that stance right now, because things could get really hairy. A little farther up, there is a police van where I can see a little bit of activity going. It's where they would put arrested individuals. But we haven't seen a lot of motion from police. They're just holding strong in the middle of the intersection, surrounded by protesters. No one's allowed to go anywhere. I can't obviously tell.
No justice,
14th
no
Street.
peace. No justice.
My understanding is they could be blocked
no
off
justice,
there as well, so we're all just
no
stuck
justice,
here.
No peace. You hear that?
Just seeing how
no
things go.
Peace. Y'all heard him? No justice, no peace. No
All right, John,
justice.
as we can hear there from the demonstrators, they keep yelling, no justice, no peace.
My mother.
It is a consistent chant that we've been hearing for 3 days now, as we've seen hundreds demonstrate throughout the district, again in response to the death of George Floyd. That death prompting this movement, this swell of anger and frustration, with people clearly saying that they are tired of police brutality. They are tired of the images of black men and black women being mistreated in circumstances that many consider unequal and unjust. And so what we're seeing here today really is a manifestation of that frustration. And what we've talked with protesters throughout the day, they've been very clear that they plan on staying out here for as long as it takes to get the attention of those that could potentially make a difference in all of this. President Trump spoke a few hours ago, and one of the things that he said that really stuck out to a lot of us was that this was a nation of law and order, and that he suggested that he was calling in members of the military to come and to try to quell these demonstrations. What good that will do remains to be seen, but we've certainly seen an aggressive posture from those on the front lines with police and protesters.
You're right, Larry, but...
Go ahead, John.
You're right, Larry. Right now, though, things are getting even more tense. You can see more police are coming in, some with batons. right now, they're heading toward S Street. That was the area where we originally blocked off. Don't know obviously what's going on right now. We wanted to just take a different vantage point because where we were was getting a little tense on that side of the street. But yeah, back to what you were talking about. Yeah, obviously things are very heated. Everything from what happened in Minnesota to the president's comments today, previous days, that's in everyone's mind. But right now, we're really seeing even a heavier police presence. I see some people in fatigues. I can't tell who they are. It says police in their back. Could easily be DC police. I've never seen them with that uniform. I don't believe that's the guard. But the police are now coming in from the street north of Swan, which I believe is R. So there are heavier police presence coming here. Once again, we're surrounded by the police on all sides here. It's a really tense stalemate. I'm gonna kind of get out of the way here, but you can see just how the police are holding the line on this side of the street, and then on the other side of the street, it's even thicker, and that's where our larger crowd was. Probably about 100 people over there, and then in the middle, there are police right there as well. Obviously, I'm not a police expert here. I don't know exactly what they're doing and what their plan is, but you can see that they're setting up for this purpose.
John Henry, if you can answer this question for me, I'd like to know, based on what you can see, how many protesters would you estimate are at that intersection?
I would say there are probably 100 protesters. The majority of them on that side of Swan that you're staring at right now. On the other side, this was a group that came probably 5 to 10 minutes later, probably 20 people. And that group, these were people who were living in the neighborhood, wanted to come out and see what was going on, and they've been yelling at police as well about their presence here in the neighborhood. This part of town, pretty unified in its message regarding police matters and actions. We're just staring across the street right now because you can kind of see there's a man who's lit up. I'm not sure if that's his own flashlight or a police light. He's yelling directly at police, and things are getting a little tense there as well. But what's really interesting is we just see more police pouring into this one intersection in the Shaw neighborhood. We don't know exactly what action they're going to take next here. I mean, it's a cramped space. We don't know how you can easily do anything. We're being told to move back.
Okay. Hey, John,
exactly which way?
John, just for some technical issues, we need you to talk closer to the boom mic. I believe we're getting your sound off the boom mic instead of your microphone, so I need you to talk closer to the boom mic. Also,
we're talking to the boom mic right now. I'll just talk louder here.
Thank you.
So police are having us move back right now, and they're using their bikes as a railing to stop people from protesters from going into the middle of the street. You can see this. We haven't really seen this throughout DC. If you kind of look down, you can see they're making their bikes a fence to make sure people do not go in the intersection. So they're trying to hold the intersection here at 15th and Swan. There's bike fence here, another line of police in the middle of the intersection, and then a line 2 or 3 deep of police where that larger crowd is.
And John, can you describe for us
north right now? There's no more police.
Can you describe for us this group of protesters? Earlier in the day, we saw certainly a diverse group in age, in race. How would you describe this group now? Is it younger?
It's incredibly young, but even more interesting is just the diversity of it. Incredibly diverse, black and white, just like we've been seeing throughout the city. And a good number of them, as I was saying earlier, live in this part of Shaw, because we saw, or this part of the 14th corridor, so we saw them come from their homes. So yeah, it's an incredibly diverse crowd out here. I'm trying to get an advantage because something's actually happening behind the crowd towards 14th. Protesters are going that way. There's a lot of yelling, but it's just very hard to see what's happening. And actually, the police are now pushing them back towards 14th. We're going to try to get a better look. You see they're being pushed toward 14th. They're going through, they're running back. Some people are going through homes, through alleyways. I think our best bet here is going to be to take a quick trip here. We're going to hold right here, actually. You can see a couple of bottles being thrown. This is something we were seeing earlier in Lafayette Square Park all throughout the weekend. Bottles being thrown toward police. Police holding the line. You can obviously see things are getting a little bit violent on that side of 15th and Swan. People are trying to throw bottles toward us, but that's just hard to do just due to distance.
Breaking into houses, so I wouldn't say that.
All right, John, stand by. It is 9:30 right now here in the nation's capital, and as you're watching now, these are demonstrations with the George Floyd protests that have been taking place for the past hour or so now. I mean, certainly demonstrations that began earlier this evening. We've been talking with our John Henry, and he is in Northwest D.C. at an intersection there, Swan and 15th, where police and protesters are squared off, and it is no doubt getting tense there. John's been giving us an update on the scene, and John, as we just heard from you a second ago, we're starting to see bottles thrown and other objects thrown at police.
Some guys literally, there's a guy who's running around, police are converging on this one person, probably 8 or 9 cops, just came down on him. I don't know what that was about. I guess he tried to go past the line and police were having none of it. But you can see they just keep pushing people through.
All right, looks like we're having some audio issues with John, but we will continue to keep this image there. What you are seeing now are officers and protesters clash. As we heard from John a few seconds ago, we have a series of lines set up where police are stationed with bikes to really fend off these demonstrators. We've seen this aggressive posture over the last several hours, and as we see there, it looks like at least one person is being taken into police custody. The charges, of course, we will learn at a later date, but we know, according to sources for Bruce Johnson, that several people at this hour have been arrested with a range of charges that we will find out most likely tomorrow. And again, that is that person it looks like they are taking away and will eventually charge. Police, as we have seen, have become increasingly aggressive with these demonstrators. We are now 2.5 hours past the time that Mayor Bowser initiated yet another curfew in the city. This curfew will last for 2 days. And now 2 hours after that curfew, where Metro has stopped, Metro Bus has stopped, Metro Police, federal authorities, and others are trying to clear out protesters that are now in violation of an executive order signed by the mayor. Let's see if we can go back to John Henry, who is at that scene. John, let us know what you're seeing.
Yeah, we're trying to get a better idea as to what happening right now north of where we are. That gentleman who was taken into police custody, we started hearing some loud sounds from that area. I can't tell if there's more activity happening there, but that line you were talking about and how police have been using lines to push back protesters from at least where we are, they're all the way back to 14th Street right now. So we may try to go to 14th Street and see them there, but you can see that gentleman is being put into a van, and right now it looks like they only have one person that they've taken away. Unfortunately, I do not know exactly what he did. It looked like he just went past their line, and then you saw just moments ago that police converged on him and then took him away. John, right now, though, at 15th and Swan, things are...
John, does it appear at all that...
Sorry,
does it appear at all that these protesters are waning? Does it look like they plan on backing down?
It does not. They're just, it's still the same size, they're just being pushed around. And that crowd is basically in 14th Street right now. They're pulling back. I think we may decide to go there right now just to follow them. But on our end right here, I mean, everyone's incredibly peaceful. And there are a lot of people just monitoring the police with their phones as it's happening across the city.
John, in relationship to what you saw yesterday, because you were out in the thick of things, How does this compare?
You know, the most interesting thing is just widespread across the district. I mean, last night where I was Upper Northwest, Tinley Town, Friendship Heights. You saw activity there, unfortunately looting. But here, near 14th and U, this is just a completely different scene. I mean, there were a lot of people here who were passionate about the issue of police brutality. What I was seeing last night, those were just plain looters. You get the idea here that the people who are here actually care about the topic at hand, which probably just fuels the passion because they want to see a change. Right now, just where we're at, we're still just trying to get a good vantage point of that crowd. They're still moving farther back, so it's kind of hard to see what's happening, but you should be able to hear it. I mean, they're still chanting, and they're still passionate about this issue. Larry?
And rightly so, John. I mean, this issue has been ongoing for some time. We have talked about, listed off here, reported on the number of black men, black women that have died at the hands of police, many of them unarmed, the circumstances unclear, and this has raised a lot of concern, not only amongst organizations, but amongst regular people about the safety of their families and the threat that some feel police pose to communities of color. And in talking with activists, you get a sense that this time is different. And looking at that video of George Floyd on the ground with an officer's knee on his neck for 8 minutes has incited an anger and frustration that has reached a pitch that we haven't seen in a while. And I think the image of that man losing his life is inescapable and really contributing to this rise of emotion that we're seeing now. People seem, based on your assessment and others, they seem committed to being out here regardless of the consequences. And in talking with an activist with Black Lives Matters DC, and they're clear, they're not organizing the demonstrations today, but do fully support them and have organized other demonstrations over the weekend, that for them, defaced buildings, graffiti, debris, fires are things that can be replaced. And that fighting for equality is essential and paramount and a basic right that should be afforded to all. And they are more committed now than ever, even during the height of a pandemic, to see this through. I asked the question today, what does the end game look like? When does this let up? When will the demonstration stop? And they tell me, listen, we don't know, but they're going to continue on. It may not be in the form of a protest, it may not be in the form of a march, but the fighting does continue. And as we're seeing there, protesters are committed to seeing equality for all, especially for those that have been routinely disenfranchised and discriminated against. So as we look and see this line of police now, you certainly get a sense of the mood. And over the last 3 hours now, we have seen police take a more aggressive posture to really clamp down and suspend these demonstrations and to potentially stop some of the things that we saw yesterday. What we saw yesterday, buildings on fire, trash in the roads, merchandise stolen. And it is clear from Mayor Bowser's administration, as we heard also from the police chief and the Attorney General for DC, Karl Racine, that what we saw over the weekend, particularly what we saw yesterday, will not happen again, that they are going to be a lot more aggressive in trying to clamp down and stop what has been some pretty consistent and arguably ugly behavior from some of the agitators there. John, were you going to say something?
I'm sorry, Larry, say that one more time?
Yeah, I thought, did you have something that you wanted to add, John?
Yeah, no, we're really just seeing this all evolve here. I mean, once again, police are still pushing them back. that line down 14th, down toward 14th. It's hard to see what's going on from here, but they're keeping their line here. And a lot of these people who are on our side, there's journalists, but I mean, some of them just live here. They're obviously concerned about what's going on. It's not as tense here as it was, maybe 15 minutes ago. But there's still a lot of passion.
We're going to take an opportunity. I want us to get a sense, and John talked about the passion that's there tonight, and we've seen it for 3 days now. And I want us to just take this moment in, so let's listen in. Right now, we are broadcasting on our digital platforms, WSA9.com, our Facebook page. We're on Twitter, Instagram as well. If you have questions, we certainly would love to hear from you. So you can type those into the comment section right now of our Facebook page, and we will try our best to go through them, to read them, to try to answer some of the questions that you may have about what we're seeing right now. But again, we're at the intersection of Swan and 15th, where we've been for just about 40 minutes or so now. And John, I want to bring you back into this because it was my understanding, based on what we were seeing in the newsroom, was that the group that we're seeing here came here from marching along P Street. Is that accurate?
Yes. There were all around this area. There were a couple of groups that all kind of converged in this area. And throughout the night, I mean, the way the police worked around the White House, a lot of the big group that we saw around Lafayette Square Park was divvied up throughout town. Around the time that we saw this group heading north to this part of the city, there was another group we spotted leaving DuPont Circle towards Georgetown. There are people protesting all across the District of Columbia tonight.
There are, and I think what's unique about this, potentially tonight, is that, it isn't, as you mentioned, not as centralized on downtown as it was over the past 2 nights, that they're in really all parts of town at this point, which could be concerning for some that are sheltered in place, staying at home, following the mayor's orders to stay in their house, to, 1, not get in trouble or to get cited, and 2, just to stay away from the demonstrations that now the demonstration, to some extent, depending on where you live, could be coming to you.
Yeah, no, that's correct. I mean, some people may have that concern. I mean, we can only talk about what we see here at 15th and Swan. Everything's peaceful, at least from the protesters' standpoint. No one's, acting crazy or anything like that. Your normal chance, everyone's concerned about their own personal safety. But everything here has been peaceful, with exception of when we see the police, push protesters further back down 14th. That's when we see a little bit more activity. But I mean, as the minutes pass by here, things are increasingly calmer here at the intersection. It's just harder for me to tell, what's going on further down Swan towards 14th. But I mean, I understand what you're saying. I mean, there are a lot of people who may have concerns about their personal property and things like that, especially after what's happened in the last 2 or 3 days. Last 2 or 3 days. But the one thing, and I think we all know this, is that the majority of people who are participating in these protests are not looking to loot and destroy, the district. They're just interested in finally putting an end to this overarching issue that they see to be a problem across not just Minnesota or DC, but the nation, and that's police tactics. They just want a fundamental change, and that's what we're seeing right now, at least in 15th and Swan. Nothing crazy here right now, but obviously a lot of people who are thinking alike.
It's interesting because I think for some, they were hoping that the president today would help heal the divide. And when we were first notified of the president's remarks that he would be making remarks today from the Rose Garden, that there was an angst that came over some as to whether or not the president's tone, his messaging, his words, whether or not that would incite more violence, more frustration, more anger. And talking with some of the protesters today, you get a sense that the president's position hasn't really swayed them one way or the other. That for those that are out there and have been for several days, they were committed to being out there and seeing this through. What is interesting, what's different today is whether or not we will see the use of military force as what the president suggested in his message from the Rose Garden today. So we will wait and see, and we are watching it. Our crews are spread all over the city, monitoring the demonstrations that we've been reporting on for 3 days now. The protests surrounding the death of George Floyd. A live look right now at the intersection of 15th and Swan. Our coverage continues right here on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section.